Are you thinking about backing Andromeda's Edge? Well, think again! I'm about to tell you not to! Welcome everybody. No, that's not my personality. If you're new to the channel, my personality is more self-deprecating, and all of that anger is generally boiled up inside. Welcome to Room and Board. My name's Chris George, and these are the 5 reasons you shouldn't back Dwellings of Eldervale. Wait, no. Sorry. Andromeda's Edge. That's right. The exact same game, but with a different skin on it. Not quite, but we'll get into it. And the premise of this series is not to pick on board game companies. The premise of this series is that anytime a board game raises over $1 million on Kickstarter or GameFound or any crowdfunding platform that might pop up down the line and take complete dominance like Hasbro Infinite, as I'm sure they'll try again, I feel like there is some measure of hype attached to it, and some measure of, wow, this thing is really amazing, everybody's buying it, so I must buy it as well. And there's the chance of being swept up in that idea and in that marketing and feeling like you need to get it, and you need to get all of it, and you need to get it right now, or your life will never be the same ever again. And then the campaign sometimes finishes, and you forget that you've even pledged for it in any capacity, and then it shows up at your door, and you think, Oh yeah, I forgot about this one. Huh. And for me and my personal backing philosophy, that doesn't cut it. It doesn't cut it of just something showing up and me going, yeah, okay, I want to be actively excited about the game that I'm purchasing, and that's what this series is about. This series is about making sure if you do get Dwellings of Andromeda's Eldervale, you will be equally excited as you are right now as to when it comes to your door. And you'll get it out and you'll play it and it will meet those expectations. That's the goal here. So I'm not trying to pick on the little guy. That's why I have a bar of $1 million. I like board games and I have to make this disclaimer every time because inevitably someone will be triggered by the title and not understand nuance and discussion. Luckily, you're not those people because you're still here. Before we get into the 5 reasons you shouldn't back, let me talk about why I am excited about Andromeda's Edge, because there is a lot to be excited about. I remember seeing this campaign, and I remember seeing the box and hearing that it was by Luke Laurie and that it was sort of a sequel to Dwellings of Eldervale. It was very exciting to me. Beautiful pictures with game tray storage. It always seemed to turn my crank. And what I did is I immediately went out and found a copy of Dwellings of Eldervale and tried it out. And so having missed the Kickstarter of Dwellings of Eldervale, I thought, well, maybe this is the time to jump in. I like that this is a new iteration on a system. I like that Dwellings of Eldervale was pretty well reviewed, and I was quite excited to jump in based upon that sentiment and those feelings, and that I'd heard people talk about it in such a positive light. And that's what excited me about Andromeda's Edge. I've heard that positive light. You've heard people speak of it in these really good ways, and actually that was what made me put Dwellings of Eldervale on my wish list. I made like a little wish list. I made a wish list video around December of thinking about the games that I want, and all I really knew was that it was worker placement, cool fantasy setting by a designer who's been tried and true, and that made me want to get it and want to try it. And I don't think I actually managed my expectations correctly as to what this game provided, but I'm glad that I've played it now. And I was delaying on putting this video out. It crossed $1 million a few days ago, and I've been a little behind because I wanted to try out Dwellings and really delve into this one so that I could be more fully informed for you all going into the 5 reasons. So it's been an interesting experience because I don't think Dwellings did meet my expectations, and we'll touch upon that when we touch upon the similarities of the two as we move forward. However, other exciting points before we get into that would be it's by Cardboard Alchemy, who brought you Flamecraft. There's some cool Flamecraft crossovers, and I mean, Kickstarter Deluxeifications just get me going. It looks incredibly well made, which is great. You know that you're going to get your game. You know that it's going to come out looking nice, and that's a great thing. This is tough. I have less to say than I would have if I hadn't played Dwellings of Eldervale. On the excitement category. Oh, I remember what I am excited about. legitimately excited about is that I think the standard pledge will be cheaper if you get it now than if you got it in the stores. Because they are adding on that extra little expansion to give it that solo mode and a little bit of extra value. And so that's kind of to offset the shipping cost. And so it might be worth the $91. You're going to have to spend $91 to get this to your door after shipping, but it might be worth that to you. So that is great to see. A lot of times you don't see a significant discount on crowdfunding campaigns in terms of those stretch goals, and the fact that they are giving you that expansion for free or being upfront that they are going to sell that separately, I think is really great and is possibly the number one reason you should get it if you're considering it. You can save a little bit of money. But then again, it might only be a little bit of money because after the shipping, it's $91, or you could get it from a store, $98. Plus, for me, for Dwellings, I don't think I would want to play it at that 5-player count too often. I think a lower player count is a little bit more my speed for what this game is. So whenever they split up something in a additional player count style of way, I'm inclined to no longer fall into that trap because maybe I wouldn't need the additional player count to begin with. But it's nice to have. It is nice to have. So that's kind of, I don't know. But it is an exciting point. So I and one that I did want to highlight. But now on to the 5 reasons. So let's just get right into the meanness. I'm sorry if I haven't highlighted enough, but look at this art, beautiful art. This art upcoming is also going to be beautiful. Okay, nice Canadian over. Let's just get into the reason why you're here in this video. The 5 reasons why you shouldn't back Andromeda's Edge. And reason number 5 is right away because Dwellings of Eldervale exists. Like I was starting to say, to cure my excitement for Andromeda's Edge, and rather than backing a game that I haven't played and will arrive in a year and a half, because I am interested in this thing right now, I went out and I bought a copy secondhand, somebody was selling it, of the retail edition. This is the retail edition, which is still in the same box as the deluxe edition. They just put in a bunch of empty boxes that say, you should go buy the deluxe components from our website so you can fill this hole in this stupidly large box. I get why they do it. It makes me very annoyed, but I get why they do it because it ultimately would likely save on print runs of having to print a separate box and assembly. I don't know, though. Makes it for a bigger box on the shelf, and that's honestly a bit annoying. But in order to cure my Andromeda's Edge desire, I played Dwellings of Eldervale. Or you could play Andromeda's Edge on Tabletop Simulator. There are a lot of ways to access this content, and I'm so happy that I did, because now I know exactly what to expect from this game and the changes of this game. The fact is, the differences between Dwellings of Eldervale and Andromeda's Edge are likely akin to the differences between Terra Mystica and Gaia Project, 2 very well-known games. I just did an interview with the designer of both of those games over on the World Series of Board Gaming channel, if you're interested in checking that out. I thought it was a fun interview. But those games are basically the same. The factions are different. There are some other elements that are different, and some other elements that I feel are really comparatively to this and Andromeda's Edge, which we will talk about moving forward. But they've got the same DNA. The marketing on the campaign page is, hey, Andromeda's Edge is the better version of Dwellings of Eldervale. They've taken Dwellings of Eldervale and they've increased it. And anyway, all that to say, because Dwellings exists and it will be reprinted because it is popular, and the differences aren't that significant, at least to my eye, having played this and read through the rulebook of Andromeda's Edge, I think you could just be fine with Dwellings of Eldervale. I think the question of do you need both is very similar to do you need both Terra Mystica and Gaia Project. You might want it if it's your favorite system and you want to see the little tweaks in that system, but for the most part and the general public, one should be completely fine, so why not pick up the one that's been out and is at a lower price rather than waiting a year and a half to see if it's something you're even interested in. Now, reason number 4, you shouldn't get Andromeda's Edge if you like long, epic experiences. And this is a box that kind of puts forward, just visually from the artwork, and I think with Andromeda's Edge, at least a little bit to me, a long, epic adventure. I'm thinking that it would take at least 2 hours, but as it lovingly said on the side of the box, it was around 30 minutes per player for Dwellings of Eldervale. And I think that playtime actually holds pretty well. And I would imagine it would be a similar experience from what I have read about Andromeda's Edge. And so if you're going into Andromeda's Edge hoping for this really long, exciting, in-depth Euro, I would take a step back and realize that it's going to be a lot quicker than you think. And this might be a reason to back. You might think, oh yeah, I want to have this big box that I can pull out with a bunch of stuff and play a really quick, snappy worker placement game. And they've also allowed for different lengths of time in Andromeda's Edge. In Dwellings of Eldervale, the ending was kind of fixed. In Andromeda's Edge, the ending is kind of fixed, but you can scale it. So it can be 50 points for a short game or 70 points for a longer game. And so they offer that idea of change if you want to elevate the experience. But I still think at its core, it's going to be a fairly snappy sort of game. Because of the worker placement aspect, right? The battles really don't take too long. That's another thing that I like about the game. Clearly, these are just going to be peppered in here as I remember things that I do like about the game. I was surprised that I enjoyed the battle system as much as I did. Because all it is you take a number of dice equal to the number of people who you have in a spot, and you roll them, and it's the highest number that wins. And if there's a tie, then it's the second highest number that wins. That's it. Battles are resolved so quickly, and there isn't much deliberation about them. You say, okay, I got 5 dice, boom, did I win? Great. You get kicked off and go to the underworld in this. And so having like a battle system that was so snappy and fast means you can focus on the actual meat of the game, which is this sort of worker placement, area control, fighting for efficiency as you lay your pieces down and you take them back and put them onto your tableau. This ultimately is a puzzle about efficiency. I think if you like Scythe, you might like Dwellings of Eldervale. In that similar, you want to be as efficient as possible with your flow of the game. But to me, Scythe and this are not long, epic games. Scythe used to be a long, epic game to me until I saw an interview where Jamie Stegmaier said, oh yeah, a good Scythe player can be finished in around 14 turns, no more than 17 turns, or something along those lines. And I thought, oh, that makes it seem quite short, actually. That makes it seem not as epic as I once thought. And then playing the game with that knowledge, I was able to kind of zoom out and go, oh yeah, this is just a little efficiency puzzle. And so if you're looking for this long, epic space adventure, as a lot of the space genre is, this isn't that. And I don't think you should expect that going in. I think if you do expect that, you'll be disappointed. So let's move along to number 3. And I kind of have 2 points here because I have 2 other main points that I want to leave as 1 and 2, and I just want to talk about various things. So number 3, the first part of it, is that if you like knowing what your opponents are doing. What I've found with Dwellings of Eldervale, and I think this is only going to be amplified in Andromeda's Edge, is that because everyone's building their own little tableau, activating it all on their turn when they recall their troops, because if you didn't know, you can send your troops out, your units out to do stuff out in the world, or you can bring them all back to do stuff all on your tableau. And so the bringing back of troops and people and units is actually the longest part of it all as you decide what you're going to do on your own turn, and everybody else has to kind of wait for you to do it or just carry along with the game. I'm one of those players who really likes knowing every card that everyone plays and likes trying to factor that into my own decision making. And I don't think Dwellings of Eldervale really lends itself to that style of play. And I think Andromeda's Edge is going to be even more heavy in the tableau building. I think the tableau building is going to be even more rich because it seems like there are more ways or easier ways to get those cards into your tableau and access a whole bunch of them and activate a whole bunch of them all at once, depending on the different energy and modules of stuff that you have. And so with that, it kind of gets into the vein of if you focus too much on what everybody else is doing, it's going to become excruciating and it's going to become too long, and I think the play and the experience of the game will suffer. And so if you like doing that and you find that a priority in your games, then I don't think this is a good one for you because you'll be left blindsided by what your opponents are doing rather than working on your own sort of thing. There's ways of interacting in that battle, but for the most part, whenever I play this, I'm just kind of focused on my own stuff and trying to be as efficient as possible and not really paying attention to my opponents as much as I would like to, let's say. And so let's also talk about 3.5. Another reason you shouldn't back is if you don't like tech trees, because one of the main differences, it seems, in Dwellings of Eldervale versus Andromeda's Edge is that Andromeda's Edge, let's see if I can find a picture. We'll use this from the rulebook. Andromeda's Edge seems to be a lot more focused on these varying tech tracks. In Dwellings of Eldervale, you just have these tech tracks based upon the elements. And anytime you buy a card in that element or you build a dwelling in that element, you get to go up on the track. And you're racing to try to get these special orbs, which give you lots of power and strength. In Andromeda's Edge, these tech tracks are going to have much more of a significant importance, and especially because you are moving up and choosing which ones you move up on in the various spaces. And me personally, I quite enjoy tech tracks, and this actually makes me more excited to purchase Andromeda's Edge, but there's so much focus around these tech tracks, especially even in the event scoring, where you're going to be triggering an event and you score the number of victory points printed next to their marker on the indicated progress track. Anytime an event happens, if you are not on that correct track, you're not going to be getting a lot of points. And so to me, that indicates the importance of enjoying that tech track play and trying to get the bonuses of those different things. And if you hate a tech track, then I think you should stay away, or you should even just veer towards Dwelling of Eldervale, which uses the tech tracks not as significantly, it seems, as Andromeda's Edge. That's 3.5, but I think worthwhile mentioning as sort of the largest difference that I can see from playing this and reading through the rulebook of that. Now let's move on to number 2. And this is a big one. This is the Kickstarter marketing train at work. This is where the FOMO really hits. And that is that I really believe that Deluxe is not the way to go for this game. I don't believe it's the way to go for Dwellings of Eldervale either, and I agree that it's not the way to go for this game, but I think this marketing in particular, and this chart in particular, really makes me annoyed because of this right here. I love that you're getting the expansion for free, and I love that they're highlighting what's in the expansion and what's not in the expansion. I think that's great, but I also think it's purposefully put this way, where you have 36 minis and 9 minis, which makes 45 minis, and then over here you have 45 minis. When you have the little yellow symbol of minis right here and the yellow symbol next to the 36, this feels to me like a deliberate upsell to you without actually upselling anything. The difference here isn't highlighted. The difference here is highlighted from the standard edition, right? The difference between the deluxe and the standard edition really just happens here in the development area, where you have 15 minis and it's 15 standees. And here where you have the upgraded tokens, right? And again, standees versus minis. It's just upgrading anything that's standee based and turning it into minis. But it's formatted in this way so that if you're scrolling down and you're thinking, okay, standard 30, your eye will be drawn to the color, and then your eye will be drawn to the color, and you'll think, oh, 36 versus 45? Yeah, this feels like a better deal. I guess I should get the deluxe edition because I'm missing out. 9 factions, 11 factions? Yeah, I'm missing out. I think this is a deliberate sort of marketing tactic to push you towards the deluxe edition. And also, I was disappointed when I got this game and I opened it and I saw this big section off to the side here, right here if I'll turn it. These boxes right here are empty. This is empty. This is empty. That down there, also pretty much empty. Right now I have the solo cards that are... Oh no. That's why you do a top down. 1 second. Much better. But I was really disappointed because I had this game and I felt like this large empty space where the minis go, or the legendary monster minis go, and the extra sound bases that everyone talks about with Dwellings of Eldervale go. If you purchase that extra deluxeified silly pledge where you don't need it. But I was disappointed. I was actually disappointed because, again, it's sort of that conversation of expectation that I expected with a box this large. I was expecting these sort of mounds of content, and all I was left with was a sales pitch making me feel bad every time I opened the box. Like, I legitimately wanted on this video to cut this box in half. That was close. To cut this box down the middle and actually give myself a usable box with all the stuff that I am going to be using and interested in using. But I figured everybody would riot at me significantly more than they do already. So that was my initial feeling when I opened the box, and then playing the game, I am so happy that I don't have that extra bloat and that I didn't spend the extra money trying to track down that cost, because I realized how completely inconsequential a lot of the deluxifications are in this, honestly, including the game trays. And I love storage. I love storage solutions. I've built storage solutions for a lot of my games that don't have them. I love an efficient way of getting things to the table. And I do love the game trays. Now I put them all away. You're not seeing them again. But I do love the game trays of this for the cards and that market. I think that's good. But for everybody's individual player section, I honestly just thought it was a little bit more fiddly than it needed to be. And this is a game that kind of screams to me over deluxification and unnecessary deluxification. From the game trays, from the little tiny resource trays that you can't get your fingers into. And I know this is more of a critique of Dwellings of Eldervale, but because they share that same DNA and this deluxe pledge is being pushed so heavily, I really don't think you need this deluxe edition at all. If you're contemplating between the two, if that's what this video is hopefully making you decide between, go with this standard edition. If you think you're going to like the game, it seems like an okay value pick. It likely will be a pick of the week for when I do my Monday crowdfunding video at some point, because I think maybe not. But I think like there's at least some decent value that you can justify it there. I don't see the deluxe edition having an impact. And honestly, I think these extra minis that they're trying to push on you, these guys, the development minis that go over top of your spaceships, I think they're going to be less fun. I think it's going to be less fun than slotting in your standee and turning your spaceship that has to stay there into a standee. It feels like it'll be less fun, and it feels, at least to me, that when you look at these sort of cargo holds and these game trays areas, I found with the flow of taking and putting back resources, having small trays, these trays look better than Dwellings of Eldervale. Dwellings of Eldervale are very small, but having those small trays where you got to dig your fingers in and pull it in and out, because you're constantly spending stuff, because the turns do move so quickly, like we were talking about. It's not long turns, they're quick turns. I feel like this is one that suffers from that Kickstarter bloat and that over deluxification trend that we see in a lot of these. And I think if you're interested in the core mechanics of the game, I think the retail edition should be more than enough. I know these are two different publishers, right? So they're going to go out about it in a different way. But you can look at the comparisons, and looking at the comparisons between the two, for me, I still see a lot of over deluxification that honestly sometimes it would interfere with the readability of the game. Not to mention, this is more of a Dwellings of Eldervale issue, but could apply for the Raider cards as well. Sometimes you don't even see the minis. You set the minis out and they're like, oh, they're going to come on the board. And then if you don't explore that location for a long time, they don't come on the board. Or the monsters immediately come on the board and then immediately die and never come on the board again. And you're using them for such a small amount of time that I can't believe or can't envision why they were ever put forward as minis to begin with. But I understand people love minis in this Kickstarter genre, but I'm here to tell you, in a Euro style game like this, especially when your pieces which you're using around are the things that are upgraded and will be upgraded as fun ships in both the retail and the deluxe edition, you really don't need it at all. So that's reason number two. Let's move along to reason number one, because I've been talking too long. Reason number one, you shouldn't get, I almost said Dwellings of Eldervale, Andromeda's Edge. They're the same to me. is if you like a streamlined game. And it's not to say that this game hasn't been tested or there are large flaws. That's not what I mean by a streamlined game, but a game with minimal mechanics, let's say. What I found exciting about Dwellings of Eldervale, in theory, were the amount of different things going on. This is also what I find exciting about Andromeda's Edge, in theory. You have your worker placement game, where you're putting workers out, and you're claiming different stuff. You have the battle system where you get to fight people, so you kind of have an area control game too, because if they're going to move in on the place where you want to take over, you can fight them and push them back out and give the person less elements to spend on the tableau engine building, which is another aspect of it. You have the tableau building where you're getting all these cards and building this tableau. And so you're having that one area control game, which is actually a worker placement game, which is actually a tableau building game, which is actually a tech track game, which is actually a resource management game, which also has these special monsters or raiders or ice pirates that are going to come and get you. There are so many elements to this game that are working at once, and that is exciting to me. It is. I like that in my games. I like that in a lot of games, but if you don't, my girlfriend in particular said it was fine, but she felt it was trying to do too much. And I kind of agree with that assessment. I think Dwellings of Eldervale was good. I think Andromeda's Edge will be good. And I like all of the different aspects because it feels like I get to do more. It feels like I have different tracks and different strategies to pursue. And you want different strategies to pursue so that the game has that replayability. But it also felt a bit like, let's just throw in everything in the kitchen sink into this mechanically. And so to me, it didn't feel like that completely defined and streamlined experience. And that might make you excited to try it out more, or that might make you stay away. And that's what this series is about, to test that balance, to hopefully be useful to you and to help you with your purchasing decisions. So just know that going in, I feel like Andromeda's Edge is going to try to do even more than it has previously. And with that, there potentially comes a lack of cohesion that I don't think will make you overwhelmed, because they're all small little parts, but may make you feel like you weren't really able to go down one sort of path. Or maybe it'll do the opposite. Maybe it'll make you feel excited to try different things and to experiment and really invest heavily into those various games, although I'm pretty sure it's going to still be all about the tech tracks, especially if you can get these huge victory point swings when the event cards are revealed, and that's how you get a ton of points, right? So take that for what you will, but that's my number one point. That's my number one reason you shouldn't back Dwellings of Eldervale, is if you want a game that doesn't do too much and dabble in all those different areas, well then Andromeda's Edge, Dwellings of Eldervale as well, may not be for you. Anyway, that's what I think. Those are my thoughts. Those are my potential devil's advocate 5 reasons you shouldn't back Andromeda's Edge. If you're still excited about it, well, hey, I hope you are still excited when it gets to your door. And if you're not, well, then you probably were just getting swept up in the marketing and shouldn't have been considering it to begin with. Let's be real. In either case, drop in the comments how you're feeling about the game, why you're excited, why you're not. I always find it's a great place for all of us to share our thoughts and for you to convince me why I'm a big dumb idiot and I should throw Dwellings of Eldervale in the trash and pledge for Andromeda's Edge, because it'll turn good into spectacular, which I always like hearing and am incredibly susceptible to. But I just appreciate you watching, appreciate participating in the conversation below, and yeah, thanks for being here. Anyway, my name's Chris George, and I do not have a catchphrase, but I do have this hacksaw. I really wish I could pull out a hacksaw and start hacking, but I know I would cut in the wrong spot. I know it's over here, and I just start hacking here. Gosh, this is so big. Just get the retail for that. I honestly wish with the game trays as they were, I wish all the player pieces were just in bags and this box were smaller. I think I would like the game more, really. But I guess I should have said that during the deluxe discussion and not now as we're exiting. Well, if you stuck around, you got these extra pearls of wisdom, because I love a good game tray, but it just didn't make any sense to have to fiddle with every piece with my hoof hands trying to claw them out of there. Anyway, thanks for watching. See you in the next video. Is that one of the factions? The hoof hands? That's what I should play as, apparently.